If this goes on, don't panic. Bringing hope to the world through speculative fiction.
Welcome to another episode of Bailey's Books. Today I am going to review 5 different books for you, and we are going to start with A Death at the Dionysus Club by Melissa Scott and Amy Griswold, published by Queen of Swords Press, 2023, originally published in 2014. This book is part of the Julian Lynes and Ned Matthew series. I previously reviewed the first book in the series, Death by Silver, 2 review columns ago, back in August of 2023. To refresh your memories, this story takes place in a Victorian Britain, but with magic. Lynes is a very Sherlock Holmesian type character, and Matthew is his metaphysician, reed wizard, boyfriend. In the second book of this series, the authors decide to dive deeper into the politics of the time than they did before, more fully illustrating the homophobia of the time by having the story take place at one of the gay clubs the main characters belong to. Now remember, back then, this isn't like a I'm going to go dancing kind of club, but rather those men's clubs Victorian men would socialize and eat at. Without giving too much away, the story revolves around men suddenly dying without a mark on them. It is quickly realized that the victims' hearts are missing. So at the beginning of the book, Matthew is recruited by the London police to help them in metaphysical matters. This, of course, draws him into the plot, and Matthew, of course, drags Lynes into the plot as well. And soon they are both trying to figure out how the victims' hearts are being removed without any sign of damage from the outside, like the outside of their bodies. I very much enjoyed the mystery of the book, and as I've mentioned in the last review, the magic system is fun and enjoyable, but not the focus of the work. In other words, I would not call this hard fantasy, although it's not really soft fantasy either. The mystery itself moved along at a good pace. The story stayed interesting throughout and even introduced a little more of the world to the reader, which was actually one of my favorite tidbits of the book revolved in this area. It was about this house that the Commons, which is think of it as kind of like the Wizards Guild, closed off from the general public. Very cool stuff. There is a bit of romance in this novel, but it is not overwhelming. If you're not a fan of physical relationships in books, there are a few places that I might skip, but I thought the sex scenes were done tastefully. The exploration of the main characters' relationships was done very well, and I think the readers will certainly see enough in the characters' relationship to remind them of their own. It definitely reminded me how much I don't miss dating. That is for certain. So if this sounds interesting to you, pick this book up. If you're a Sherlock Holmes fan, you like historical fiction, and thought out but not overbearing magic systems. All right, the second book on our list is called Green New Worlds, A Quick Guide to Sustainability Through Science Fiction Fantasy by Ricardo Victoria-Uribe. Sorry, Ricardo, if I pronounced that wrong. And Martha Elba Gonzalez-Alcaraz. Published 2024 by Luna Press Publishing. And in fact, this should be coming out fairly soon around the time that this podcast comes out, a little bit before or a little bit after. Now, in transparency, this book was sent to me by Dr. Ricardo Victoria-Uribe, podcast friend and sometime guest. This slim volume gives a quick introduction to sustainability using pop culture references from science fiction and fantasy properties to illustrate the ideas. The book is easy to understand for people like myself with no real science background, and the occasional asides are entertaining and insightful. Chapters discuss things like needs versus consumerism, the history of sustainability, social justice and why it's important to sustainability, along with 7 other topics. Circle around the main topic to give you a lay of the land, so to speak. It comes complete with academic citations, as well as citations from properties like the MCU and Lord of the Rings and Captain Planet and Neil Gaiman and Jurassic Park and Discworld. So you can kind of see where we're going here. The language is easy to understand with few unnecessary big words, though at times the sentence structure can be a little complex. An interested high school student could very well pick this up and come away with a basic understanding of sustainability in the few hours that it takes to read this book. I would highly recommend picking this up if you are interested in climate change sustainability, enjoying easy-to-read nonfiction, or you want to piss off your MAGA uncle at the next holiday gathering. Okay, third book on the list is Interchange by Daniel M. Bensen, published 2021 by Flame Tree Press. Back in 2020 or 2021, I reviewed the first book in this series. It's honestly been so long, I couldn't even find it on our episode list. Anyway, since then, I've been trying to find the sequel that was released in 2021. Every time I went to order it, it was out for some reason or another. So finally, over the summer, I accidentally found it when I was visiting Ithaca, New York at a bookstore PM Press bought. Anyway, the story picks up where Junction, the first book in the series, left off. If you haven't read it, in Junction, a biologist, Anne, and a TV nature show host, Daisuke, find a portal while in the jungle of Indonesia. This discovery sucks them into an international conspiracy during which they are trapped on a world of many combined alien ecologies and their inhabitants. Stop and think of a quilt of hundreds of alien ecologies collected in one world by another alien species. The rest of the story is basically those characters trying to survive and keep their fellow travelers alive. Interchange starts with Anne and Daisuke going back to the Junction world, paid by a billionaire to help explore it further. This time, there is also a physicist with them to gain a greater understanding of the portals. As before, the best part of this book are the alien species described by Bensen in lurid detail. I'd say this book ventures more into the hard SF territory than the previous book, not only with more detailed explanations of the creatures that they meet, but also diving a bit into the physics of the portals, which I don't recall being covered much previously. Thematically, the book discusses the ideas of colonization, environmental issues, as well as neurodivergence, using Anne as the crux of all three themes. Plot-wise, Anne pushes back hard against the physicist, who is very egocentric, and the billionaire, while trying to protect the land and the creatures of Junction, and trying to teach the other characters why it is important to care about things like ecology. Overall, I really enjoyed the book. The aliens Bensen was able to think up were so detailed and interesting, it was hard not to enjoy them. My only wish is that Anne was a little more likable. I believe the author was trying to portray an autistic character with her, and he partially showed that through her inability to read the other more social characters. And I get that aspect, but I also know a lot of autistic people who can be perfectly likable even when they're being socially awkward. And let's not forget, I really like to have a character I can sympathize with. That is hard to do with any of the characters in this book, frankly, but some people like that. So if you enjoy unlikable characters, this book might be for you. Also, pick this up if you enjoy alien biology and pushing back against the extremely wealthy. Okay, next we have The Skinless Man Counts to Five and Other Tales of the Macabre by Paul Jessup, published by Underland Press. And this will also be coming out shortly before or shortly after the podcast releases. So keep an eye out for that very soon. This collection by Paul Jessup is a blend of straightforward horror tales and deconstructions of reality and story. It often reminds me in many ways of Promise, the collection by Christy Nogel I reviewed in my last review column. Perhaps I've just randomly stumbled upon these two collections, but the way both authors allow reality to decay seems to point to a theme in my reading. This could also be my naivete when it comes to dealing with horror, or maybe it's the state of the world in my personal life, but it does feel like reality itself has begun to decay a bit. Certainly normalcy has, and maybe sanity. So anyway, a couple of stories I'd like to highlight in this book include When Max Was Hungry Again, The Last Stand of the Antmaker, and Stone Dog. When Max Was Hungry Again is a more straightforward type of horror story with the narrator's boyfriend refusing to eat and slowly withering away. She tries to cure him numerous ways to horrific effect. I want to add here that Jessup often includes a sense of the absurd, as well as a sense of the unknowable. The next two stories I wanted to mention do these things in different ways. The Last Stand of the Antmaker is more straightforward, as in there's a beginning, middle, and end to the story in a conventional sense. The main character accidentally survives a plant-based apocalypse because he's basically a recluse. And how does he spend his time, you ask? Making ant sculptures. Of course. These facts combined bring the absurd to this strange little tale, but it also leaves us feeling the character's loneliness and alienation. Stone Dog is Jessup at his most absurd. The story starts with a student chronicling her dislike of school and a crush on her teacher. From there, the story spirals into a darker kind of absurdity. Events spiral out of control into an almost indescribable chaos. It takes more space than I have here to speculate, but this is a story you could probably write an essay about. Let's just say reality comes unwound. So pick this collection up if you like unconventional storytelling, creepy vibes, and an uncertain reality. The last one on our list is also a sequel of a series that I've been working on. This is Europa, which is part of the Fractal series by Alan Stroud, published by Flame Tree Press 2023. I've been covering this series for quite some time now. In fact, we interviewed Dr. Stroud when the first book of his Fractal series came out, before anyone knew it would even be a series. A few months ago, it was announced that there would be a series of novellas that take place in the Fractal universe that generally take place after the second novel. As a lover of novellas and experimentation, I really love this idea. Europa is the first in the series. Give you a quick summary, and it will be very short because this book was only about 90 pages long. A group of scientists are sent out to the moon Europa by a corporation to avoid Earth laws around genetic engineering. Once there, things go quickly awry when a member of the crew is found injured. This story is one part Frankenstein, one part philosophical treatise, and one part action film. Initially, it appears to have very little to do with the overarching story of that universe. But if you've been paying attention, you will see clues throughout that point us back to the wider plot. It was a little fun to jaunt around a corner of this universe that we have not yet visited, but I am curious how it will ultimately contribute to the overall picture. The story did feel a bit rushed to me, but I did appreciate how much he was able to fit into those 90 pages. Pick this up if you like some philosophy in your science fiction, if you like piecing together small stories for larger ideas, and planetary exploration. All right, well, that's it for this time. If you like what we're doing, make sure you share us with your friends out there in the interwebs. Share us on Facebook, X, Blue Sky, or, wherever it is you spend your social media time these days. We appreciate it. Thanks. Bye.